tonight's theme is creep. Stories about the supernatural, occurrences, sightings, hauntings, and sometimes creepy people. A lot of spooky stuff. Tori, you got a spooky story or a creep story? I know you got
too many
creeps.
X's. Yeah,
yeah, you got some creeps.
Yeah, they're
I've
all
heard
creeps.
some of them. Yeah.
I don't know how to pick them, but I do believe in ghosts. What about you?
I do. And last year, one of the storytellers from this show and I went to New Orleans, and we went on a ghost walking tour. And then one of the ghosts tried to get into my bed that night. So
sounds like a dude from New Orleans.
It does, right? That's what happens in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
creepy. Not the bed.
Creepy.
All right. Well, we're gonna get right into it. We have 7. You guys excited or what? All right, cool. The first storyteller coming to the stage is Monique Bhimani. Monique shares a story about a house that had a little bit extra company.
Please put your hands together for Monique Bhimani.
So, my story begins. The fact that my husband, me, my daughter, and my 2 dogs live in a haunted house. Now, most people think haunted house, they're like, okay, 1800s, big mansion, whatever, obviously haunted. Our house was built in 1969, 1970. It's a 1-story, 1-car garage, and the yard is about 3 times as big as our house. It is pretty nondescript. Well, we have stayed in this house because my grandmother, about a decade ago, she gifted us this house to me and my husband as our wedding gift. And she initially got this house in the 70s for the sole purpose of it being a rental property. So over the years, many families have lived there. Grandma's in her late 80s, and so she really can't tell me who has lived there before or say if anyone's died. But you know what? It was a free house. We have no mortgage. We're going to take it. So we first saw that things were a little different at our house about 6 months in. Me and my husband were putting up the Christmas ornaments, and some of them that we have lights and music, right? So one of them, we tested out, and it's going on, it's a cute little jingle, and we're like, okay, let's turn this off, save the battery. But it wouldn't turn off. It kept going and going, no matter what we did to try to fangle with it. So, like any normal person would, I took the ornament, and we had a German Shepherd in the yard at the time, just threw it in the yard and let the dog take care of it. We're like, okay, whatever, that's one off. About a year later, we had our daughter, and for those parents of young children, when the kids become toddlers, and then all the toddler toys have batteries, and because the toys play music, and the toys have noises and everything. So we got her this little cube toy, and it was in the playroom. We converted it for her. And one day, we're eating lunch. The kitchen's next to this playroom, about 10 feet away. And it just starts playing out of the blue. And there's no one in the room. The closest we are, again, is about 10 feet away. And we're like, all right, maybe it'll just start on its own at some point. 5 hours later, it is still going. So we decide let's close this door, and then we'll get rid of it after it stops playing. The spirit also that we've nicknamed Ghost Child, since it tends to like little musical toys, we bring home a little toy steering wheel for her, and it's one of those like Maggie from The Simpsons has, right, in the previews, and super cute, test it out, play it for her a bit. Just again, same thing, try to turn it off. It doesn't turn off. This time I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the batteries out. This has got to work, right? Batteries come out. And it's still playing. So my baby, she's all like, Mommy, can I play with it? And I'm all like, baby, we can't let you play with a toy that is still going with no batteries. So that goes into the donation bin. again, on this theme of musical things, she grows up a little bit. So about 2 years ago, it's about 8:39 p.m. She is stalling, like does not want to go to sleep. And so we're in the kitchen. The Alexa's in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, we start hearing this little jaunty, like pirate tune play from Alexa, like sung by a little boy. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. My husband must be like trying to encourage us to get to bed by playing a song on the Alexa. I had to finish go, talk to my husband in the bedroom. I'm like, what was the name of that song? That was super cute. He's like, what song? Like the one that you were just playing in the kitchen. He's like, I didn't play anything. He's just been scrolling on his phone. And so I go in the kitchen, ask Alexa, play last song. And it says, sorry, there is no record. Like, oh man. We could not get rid of Alexa, so she's still there. And then just a couple years ago, the spirit seems to be a little bit more mischievous, right? So Saturday morning comes along. My husband decides to take my daughter out to the front yard and play, letting me sleep in. I get a text. Ignore it. I get a call from him, and he's like, come unlock the front door. So to preface this, we have a front door, and then we have a screen door, right? The screen door, we've lost that key about 2 months after we bought it, about 8 years ago. So it does not lock, right? I'm like, okay, whatever, shuffle out of bed, one eye open here, unlock the door. And he's all like, why did you lock the door? It is Saturday morning. I am sleeping in. I do not have both my eyes open right now. Why would I go and lock the door? So we don't know who locked the door. But one other time, just last year, also around this time of year, ghost child, again, prankster, I'm sure. We have this wall in our kitchen, and it is, dining room. It has a huge, heavy antique mirror. It has paintings. It has portraits, calendar, and a clock. The clock is, again, nondescript, like from Amazon, right? Well, one night, it falls down. Nothing else on the wall has moved at all. I'm like, okay, whatever. Someone must have bumped the wall. Whatever, just put it back up. Second night, it falls down again. And I'm like, okay. Again, benefit of the doubt. Maybe my daughter did something. I don't know. And only the clock fell. Third night, this part of the story my husband had to remind me about. We hear the clock fall. I go over and look at the wall, and I see, okay, obviously, no clocks there, but we don't see it on the floor. My husband's looking everywhere for it. Finally, he goes into the playroom, all on the far wall, about 12 to 15 feet away from where the wall with the clock was on, and there's the clock on the floor. And I'm thinking, gravity doesn't work that way. So I get so freaked out. Bought a new clock from Walmart with the old clock, get the old clock down, get out my sage, like it's in the storage room here, to help cleanse the space, light the sage it. Sage my husband, sage my daughter, have them sage me, sage the rest of the house. And that goes in the trash pile. So now, again, we still live in this house because we have no mortgage. And if anything happens again, we'll just buy more sage. Thank you.
What'd she do for a mortgage? You know what I mean?
I mean, come on. We've had stories about people that couldn't move before.
Yeah.
Right? You gotta live where it's free.
How cheap are we talking?
Yeah, right? Sounds like I got a lot of property at that place, right? Yeah. She's good.
Ghost children are creepiest.
Yeah,
All right. Ugh. I saw your face. That was funny.
Our next storyteller is Bob Carnes. Bob shares a story about a day at work that he won't ever forget.
We do have a bit of a content warning. This story does discuss acts of violence. So please, with that in mind, if you need to step out, please welcome to the stage Bob Carnes.
In the summer of 1966, I was 23 years old. I was a year out of the Navy and a student at the University of Texas in Austin. I had a part-time job as a switchboard operator, a night switchboard operator for the TV station, one of the TV stations, KHFI, which was the, the NBC station. I was a switchboard operator, but the real newsmen had taught me how to shoot film because they were tired of going to rubber chicken dinners. In Austin, there was a lot of those. But on the morning of August 1st, I was headed to work. But I was having to go a circuitous route because there were blockades, and I heard a bunch of sirens. There was something going on. I decided it had to be a big fire somewhere. And when I got to the station, I found out that there was a sniper on the tower at the University of Texas, and he was shooting people. And as it happened, all the newsmen were out of pocket, either out of town. One of them was actually trapped in the tower. So they gave me a camera and gave me a bunch of film and said, go take some film. I got outside and there was a car going down there, a news unit, with some people from the station. I don't know what they were about, but I had them take me up San Antonio on the west side of the campus, about 1 block off of Guadalupe, the drag. They put me out behind the co-op, and I went up across the drag. I was conscious of being visible to the tower from there. There was nobody on the drag, which was very odd. I went up the intercampus drive, and the intercampus drive goes to the south side of the tower. Between the drive and the tower, there's a mall, a concrete open area, and then a set of steps coming down to the drive. On the way there, I could hear big shots, which were coming from the tower. I could hear a bunch of other people shooting, but they were obviously 22s and shotguns. There's, just absurd. But about 3/4 the way up to where I was going to end up, I saw some activity on the left side. I turned and I took film of that, what was going on. It turned out to be a policeman that had been shot. I found out he didn't make it, but I went on up. And just before I got to the steps, I sat up below the balustrade, and there was a oak tree above us, and I figured I was safe. I found out later that's exactly where the policeman had been when he got shot. There were some other people up there, but the one I remember most was a nurse. She told me she was a nurse. And she told me that, there had been multiple people shot, some killed for sure, as far away as 19th Street, which that's almost an incredible shot, and then a lot of them on the drag and then other places too. On the mall, on the concrete area, there were people laying there that had been wounded. And I can't conjure a picture of how many there were anymore, but backing up, it must be like 6 or 7 people laying out on the mall. And she, the nurse, wanted to go help them. But I told her, there's no sense having another victim out there, And I think I'd heard that somewhere in the Navy, something like that. But I thought then that maybe I was telling her that because if she went out there, I was going to have to go too. and I didn't want to go out there. But, you know, for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, I was shooting what was going on around me, and I used up a lot of film. A 100-foot roll was 3 minutes of film, and I think I shot 10 rolls, but I'd have to go back and find that out for sure. While we were there, another guy came up, and there was a hero. He was a hero, and the only one I saw that day. He was a ginger-haired guy, kind of overweight. He was really sweaty. I gave him the same thing about not being a victim. He told me he had already pulled people out on other places, and he had a couple of guys with him. So he started going up there and pulling people off, and I filmed all of that. And the one I remember most was a tracking shot. They left me here. They went up the stairs and ran out, and they got this young woman. She was in like a green summer, one of those cotton dresses, you know. They brought her out and they put her right at my feet. It was like I directed the shot or something. I found out later she died, and then the child that she was carrying as well. These guys got him off, but the last man was a big guy, like 300 pounds in a suit. I heard later that he was trying to get a job as a professor, but they came off and they dropped him on the steps, on the stairs, and they were spent. You could see So I handed the camera to the nurse, and I ran out to get the guy. And another person came with me. If I'd have been a real newsman, the name of the guy with the red-haired guy and the nurse, they would be known quantities nowadays. But I didn't know to do that. I didn't know to get names and find out, try to interview them later or anything like that. I did learn that later on in my career, but I ran out there, me and the other guy picked this 300-pound man up, and he felt like he was a featherweight. When we ran over, all this time you were thinking that you were going to be shot. I found out later that it wasn't a hippie, which is what we thought it was. It was a guy very much like me, almost the same age, had been in the service the same amount of time. And they found out later he had a pecan-sized tumor in his brain. And a troubled person. But anyway, I went and looked, couldn't get it back there. Took the film back to the station. They developed it. They didn't bother editing it. They just cut off the bad ends, spliced it together, and put it on a reel. The station manager, Dan Love, was out, and he was on camera, and they were talking about what was going on. And he was about to sign off, and then he said, wait a second, he said, I've just heard that one of our young newsmen, Bob Carnes, shot some film. And so they started running the film, and he was going to comment on it. And he watched the opening shot, and he said, son of a bitch. And then he couldn't talk after that. And that's the only film that was shot. So if you've ever seen any film from that incident, it was my film. And that's it.
One more time for Bob, guys. Let him hear it. It's an amazing story and so important that we captured it.
Really, the night we did the storyboard meeting, I think he told about twice that length, and we just all sat there.
Minutes, yeah.
Gripped. It was.
Not that I was like 16 minutes. You
You
know,
don't move it. No. But
we were all very moved,
Yeah.
and we remain moved. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we are still like in that moment, almost.
yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, great job, Bob.
Amazing.
Okay, that's
yeah.
the show.
Go out. Yep. Now let's all go.
All right. Moving on. We're keeping on going. Our next storyteller is Cynthia Harrington. Cynthia is going to share a story about a place that she rented that was already occupied.
Put your hands together for Cynthia Harrington.
So I was very excited. My first apartment after college. Moved in with a good friend of mine. It was a great time of life. We found this place that was a 1940s original apartment on a street with buildings that looked just like ours. 3-story brick buildings with two apartments on each floor. Lovely sun porch in the front, and one of those, it had an exit to the back with wooden stairs and landings. It was had some of the original features. We had wonderful oak floors. They were a little buckled, but lovely. Still the ceramic features in the bathroom, the light fixtures, with the little dongle on the bottom to turn it on and off. But we soon realized that our apartment was not like the other apartments on the street. It first started when I was hearing knocks on the door, and I would go to the door, and there was nobody there. It always happened when I was home alone, and so I couldn't validate it with Barry. I would go to the door, look out, my mind would explain, somebody upstairs, it was somebody across the hall. But when I shared it with Barry, he said, every time I come home, when you're not home, I have a feeling that there's someone in the apartment. I go into the kitchen and I open all of the cupboard doors, even ones where there was no possibility of a human being to be in. He said, I can just feel this presence. We got the apartment from some friends of his who had moved out, and we were very excited to get in there. They were 2 moms and 2 kids, so there was always someone home. We called them and we said, this is happening. Did you have any experiences like this? And they said, no, but the people upstairs would have their piano start playing in the middle of the night. And sometimes their bike, where they put it in the hallway, would end up in one of the bedrooms. We said, thanks a lot. We've got a year's lease, so we're thinking it's not, maybe it'll go away. It's not hurting anything. One day I was getting ready for work, and I had the back bedroom with the window out onto the landing, and I could leave it open. We had this wonderful cross breeze that would go all the way through to the sun porch. In the spring and the fall, the leaves or the curtains would move in and out with the breeze like the building was breathing. So I was getting ready for work. I had the window about half open, and a black cat shot through the window and onto the bed, hackles up, ready to fight. It looked like there was something in the apartment, in the bedroom, that it was going after. I freaked out. Why would this cat choose my window that looked like every other window on the block to come into? So I picked it up, threw it out. At this point, I'm just unnerved. Again, we decide, well, it's not hurting anything. That might have been a coincidence. Takes a long time to get our minds around something was happening, but it wasn't there. So one Sunday, I'm luxuriating in bed, coffee, newspaper. I probably was dozing off, waking back up again. I distinctly heard the apartment door open. I distinctly heard the apartment door close and the deadbolt latch. I distinctly heard someone creep across with the floor with its very identifiable creaks, and then nothing. well, he might just be sitting quietly in the sunroom, but half an hour went by and another 15 minutes went by, and I thought, nah, something's wrong. So I called out. Nothing. I went out. There was no one there. I called him. I said, what's going on? Did you come? Did you leave? He said no. We've steeled ourselves at this point to staying there. We've reasoned out it only happens when we're there alone. So it's probably a playful ghost that is friendly and wanting to play, looking like he's doing she is trying to just get our attention. And we've reasoned this out a little bit and kind of settled down until one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and the bathroom light is on. And I thought, I'm home alone. Barry has a boyfriend, so he's gone. But I thought, well, there is one of the dongles that's a little bit loose. Could easily have just turned it halfway off and it flipped back on. So I go to the bathroom, half awake, sit down, look up. The other light is on. I could feel a presence. I thought, I am home alone in the dark with something that just turned this light on. So that was it. Never spent another night in the apartment. We did try and continue to validate, sort of like, is this really happening? And we found a ghost expert, invited her over. We told her the story. We showed her around the apartment. She's very, not like Ghostbusters at all, but just very, very calm, very reasonable. Because we're noticing this because we're trying to get some response from her. And we said, so what do you think? And she said, I will be fine as long as I get out of here. At that point, we said, okay, this is it. When we talked to the landlord, because we had to break the lease, we told him what was going on, and he said, are you telling me that this place is haunted? We said, that's exactly what we're telling you. And he said, okay, we'll break the lease. So I think he'd heard those stories before.
Do we have realtors in the audience? You're supposed to disclose that? Is that
I was going to say, we've got a theme here, not just the
I feel
real
like you
estate.
have to say something like
Only, well, it
a
depends on the
violent
state.
death occurred.
Yeah,
where
depends on
you're
the state.
standing.
Yeah. Maybe not in Texas, because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coincidentally, of everybody, a violent just kidding.
Entirely unrelated. Yeah. So our next storyteller is Tori Dominguez. Tori shares a story. Oh, that rhymed.
Yeah,
Tori shares a story about
welcome.
My Little Pony fandom and the brony who couldn't take a hint.
Put your hands together for Tori Dominguez.
So I was 17 when I started my freshman year at Rice University. I was always been a little younger than my peers because I skipped second grade. So when I get to the school, I'm moving from Corpus Christi to Houston. I know no one there. So I try to make friends, and I try to make friends at the anime club. If you don't know what anime is, it is cartoons from Japan. I have always been into everything geeky. Movies, cartoons, anime, and even My Little Pony at the time. Because there was... So in the anime club, there was the club president. He had the temperament and the dress sense of Hank Hill. So I'll call him Hank from now on. So Hank was a 23-year-old grad student studying physics. He was trying to get his PhD. And we got along well for about 2 years. It was great. I shortly after became the vice president of this club. He even started a new club. He started the Doctor Who club because he loved Doctor Who, and he got me into Doctor Who. So we enjoyed that together. We would go to the we would go to the bookstore. We'd go to the movie theater. We would go to anime conventions around town, and I even invited him back to my place back home so that we could go to a convention in my hometown. Everything was great until about my junior year. I needed to go to a showing of Death of a Salesman for my theater class, and he was willing to drive me because he had a car and I didn't even have a license. And when I got into the car, I saw him, and oh my God, his haircut was terrible that day. And he was awkwardly rubbing his steering wheel and asked, "Hey, I was kind of hoping this could be a date." And I didn't know what to say, so I'm like, "Okay, sure." So we watched the show, and it's great. But immediately after, I'm like, "Oh my God." I immediately regretted it because I'm not attracted to this man. I can't see myself kissing him. I can't see myself becoming his girlfriend. So I shouldn't be dating him. It's just simple as that, right? But I don't know how to tell him that 15 minutes after I said yes. So when we get out of the car, well, I get out of the car and he drops me off. Everything went well. And I'm waiting for his car lights to leave. And I see them fading away, but then they come back. He's coming around in a circle. And I turn to look, and the headlights are just in my face. And he comes out and he asks, "Hey, I've never done this before, but oh God, do you want to kiss?" And I said, "Oh no, thank you. I'm just not ready." So that's the thing. That's what I said. I said, "I'm not ready." But what that implies is that someday I will be ready. So keep on my ass about it. And then, our friendship got much more awkward after that. I tried to make it fun and friendly, like, these aren't dates, silly. You don't even pay for me. These aren't dates. We're just hanging out. We're just being buddies. Oh, did you see the new commercial for the Thor movie? It's so cute. They have Loki, and he's reading stories to a bunch of children, and one of the little girls says, "Thor's my favorite hero." So Loki pushes her over, but he's still hot, though, so it's funny. And he's like, "Oh, so that's what I got to do, huh? To get you to like me, I got to push over a child?" That is not why I told you that story. I was just trying to be funny. So one day, I just have to put a stop to it. At the time, we would use Facebook Messenger like all the time, especially to just decide, where are we going to go? We're going to a brony board game night. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, because we were both into My Little Pony at the time. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, specifically. It's a great show. Weird Al Yankovic was actually on the show. He played a character, a supporting character. And so one day I just had to break it to him. I said, "Look, I know you're waiting for me to like you back. It's not going to happen, buddy. I'm not attracted to you." And so the message, Facebook messaging, turns into a phone call. And he calls me on the phone, and he is just blubbering. "I don't understand. Why won't you give me a chance? We went to your house. What was that about? I'm a nice guy. No one's even given me a chance before. No one could be bothered." It made the attraction level go from 0 to the negatives. It was awful. And yet, I still wanted him to be my friend. So I didn't know how to break it off concretely because I actually cared about being a bitch back then. I was already a tease. I couldn't be a bitch too. That's how you die. And then, so I slowly weaned off of him. And at graduation, we went our separate ways. He now has a PhD in physics, and he's moving to another state. And I'm going home. I initially had pre-med dreams, but those sank. So now I'm in nursing school. I'm still floating, still keeping afloat. So I think it's over. We're done. He's going away. We're parting ways. It's over. College is over. Until 2 years later, I get a message from him on Facebook. I haven't unfriended him because unfriending is an act of war. And he just wants to tell me, "Hey, I know it's been a while. haven't heard from you. How's medical school going? And I just tell him, oh, medical school, isn't happening. I'm going to do nursing school instead. He's like, cool. I'm getting married and I would like to send you an invitation. I'm like, oh, thank God. Someone else has agreed to marry this man. I'm free. Yes, I will accept an invitation. Here's my address. So he sends the invitation. Don't worry. Relax. So the invitation comes in the mail. It's a little paper TARDIS. It's cute. I open it up. I read the details of the woman who has the key to my chains. And it's all, and I'm like, oh, great, he's getting married. I don't go, but still, it was nice to be invited to the wedding. I think it's over. He's married someone else. And then 2 more years pass by. And I get a message from him on his phone. When I see the notification, I just get that sinking, gross pit in my stomach, just seeing it. My day's ruined. I open it up to see, what could you possibly have to say to me after you're married? And he just wants to catch up. He's like, hi, how's it going? How's med school? I told you last time I'm not in med school anymore, but I don't even bother to tell him that. When I realize I don't want to hear from him anymore, I just unfriend him, finally. I think it's over. Until 1 year later. In this 1 year time, he has sent a long text message to my best friend and my mother about how he's concerned that I unfriended him. And I told him I unfriended him on purpose. Why? Could it be that she's suicidal because she didn't get into med school and now she's cutting off every friend she's ever had? This is the kindest woman I've ever known. This is like Mr. Rogers ignoring a child. Please check on her for me and tell me that her friend misses her. I was done with this man. So I finally just let it all out, saying, I haven't felt comfortable with you since I was 19. Get out of my life. And he's like, well, I just wanted to tell you that I was having a baby with my wife. And also, FYI, ghosting is cruel. But after that, I officially never heard from him again. But I did hear that My Little Pony ended and that Weird Al Yankovic's character that I mentioned had a baby with Pinkie Pie. So he's canonically has a little baby horse of his. And I'm telling you all that so that I never have to message this 30-year-old married doctor again.
And now we're going to say his name. Just kidding.
Wait. I'm pretty sure he's here tonight.
I know, right? He heard the call. He came out of a TARDIS. Jesus. Oh, my God. It's so funny because she was like, he wants me. Ew.
Yuck.
I feel that, yeah.
Some people definitely can't take a hint.
Yeah. I just like the ones that don't want you. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So our next storyteller is Dan Steigelman. Dan shares a story about a person who would not miss his favorite party.
Please join me in welcoming Dan Steigelman.
So there it was, the first Friday of August in 2018, and I'm on a flight with my wife, Elizabeth, our friend, Nikki, and we were called upon to go to Baltimore to support the 3rd annual Crab Bake and Carcetti family reunion for our friend Lisa. Lisa needed our help because she'd become a widow earlier that year on the 2nd of May. Charles had died of thyroid cancer. Charles had lived with thyroid cancer for the better half of a career as an Army physician. He was a family medicine physician and actually stationed just up the road at Fort Cavazos. In 2017, the Army allowed him to retire, did a full career, didn't retire him early, and then joined Lisa in Maryland. So he helps put on the 2nd annual Crab Bacon family reunion. Charles was an accomplished chef. He liked putting together a brisket. He knew how to put it together, stayed up the whole night with it and cooked. The next day, where 4 generations of people show up, he becomes the natural center of attention. You see Charles, 6'4", piercing blue eyes, a left eyebrow that would go up into his forehead and telling you this is a really good story. Not least of which because he was a prankster. You see, he had an affinity for birds, and one of his favorite things he had was an alarm clock that cock-a-doodle-doo! So when guests would stay at their house, and his guests, not so much Lisa's guests, but his guests, the alarm clock would find itself in an inconvenient place in the bedroom where the guest would stay. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, cock-a-doodle-doo, and where is this infernal thing? And Charles would be convulsed with laughter in his bed, leaving Lisa to wonder, is this the most horrible man I have ever known, or is he the most fiendishly clever? They had a deep love. So after the events of that second reunion, and he's the center of attention, he turns to Lisa and says, I've been awfully short of breath all day. And you see, Lisa was a psychiatrist, herself a doctor, and she knew this was a big deal because Charles had had one of his lungs removed previously to remove some of the thyroid cancer. They end up in the emergency room. They find a pleural effusion, fluid between the lung and the chest wall, compressing the lung, making it really hard to breathe. They put in a chest tube, and Lisa is furious. How could you wait this long to tell me that you were short of breath? With the earnestness of a 4-year-old, I didn't want to miss the party. So there we are on the eve of the third annual. We are preparing kebabs. We are preparing brisket in the manner specified. We're preparing chicken marsala. Lisa stays up that whole night preparing the brisket. I go to sleep with Liz and the other guest. We wake up the next morning with the sun. We get the crabs. People start arriving by 11:30, and at 1 o'clock, I'm there cooking the kebabs over the Weber grill, and the kebabs are just off the patio, and I can see the patio, the length of it down the house, and there's 1, 2, 3 ceiling fans. And it was a hot August day in Maryland. It was blue skies, no clouds, no precipitation, no thunder, no nothing, but ceiling fan 1 doesn't know it's a ceiling fan. Ceiling fan 2 is maybe drunk. It's a little faster. And ceiling fan 3 is doing such a good job, maybe it's like on hyperdrive. Lisa, do you see this? Yeah, Dan, but there's a party going on. Okay, got it. So the afternoon progresses, and I get tired because it's been a hot day and we're preparing everything. I go take a nap, and in our bedroom, where there was no chicken alarm clock, the fan was set to gale force winds because that's how my wife likes to sleep. This one was also just kind of drunk and lazy. I wake up from my nap in time enough to see the guests leave at 6:30, and by 7 o'clock or so, it's just the quartet of us. My wife goes downstairs into the basement where there are no windows, so the only light is from above. And, hey guys, I can't get the basement lights to turn on. So we go downstairs. That's kind of unusual. We go downstairs, and as I'm descending the stairs, I see the light above the stairwell is on, but is dim. I'm from California. We had brownouts. It looks like a brownout, but that's not the problem in all the other lights. We get downstairs, and the ceiling lights are bona fide off. Flip, 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 flip. You can't get them to turn on, but there's light down there. Where's this light? Oh, my God, the chickens are lit up. You see, when they lived at Fort Cavazos, they raised chickens and some fancy ones, too, and Lisa was a photographer, so she took pictures of these chickens and headshots high up on the wall and hired an electrician to spotlight the chickens high up on the wall. So there we are, the drunk ceiling fans, the brownout, the off lights, and the chickens bright as day. Is Charles with us? Well, I'm a doctor too. I took an engineering course here or there. I'm going to go check out the circuit board. It's normal, guys. It's all on. Start flipping them off, and that didn't change the behavior. Start turning back on. That didn't change the behavior. It's all just wackadoodle. Is Charles playing a prank on us? Can you speak to the dead? God damn it, Charles! If this is you, knock it off! For 2 minutes, the lights come back on. The electrical problem has resolved itself. And 2 minutes later, the same stuff happens, but then there's an auditory component. Shh. We're like, where is that? There's no television, there's no radio. Oh my God, it's coming out of the electrical outlets. You could walk up to an outlet and you just hear the current coursing through the house. Lisa does a survey of the property. She walks through every room, and the only place where there is not a problem is where Charles died and where their bedroom was. That night, she calls the electrician after we have gone to sleep. Electrician comes over like at midnight. It's rural Maryland. She knows this person. There's nothing wrong with your house, Lisa. There's no electrical problems here at all. We wake up the next morning. Everything is great. We return in 2022 and 2024, and everything is fine. So Charles, we hope you are at peace. We hope you are among those you love. We miss you dearly, but we're very glad you were with us, that third annual Crab Bacon Carcetti Family Reunion.
Can you guys give another round of applause for Charles? Who loved a good party. I love that. I like the current part. Have you guys ever seen Stir of Echoes? That's what they're doing. Okay, I'm old. But
You're not old.
that was creepy. Yeah.
I just love the roosters or the chickens. Yeah. So
Yeah, he's
Lit
like, I
up.
really want you to look at my. Never
yeah.
mind.
Well, I was gonna try to. Yeah. Gotta light it up.
All right,
Yeah. Sorry.
I'll be here till Thursday. Our next storyteller is Joaquin Muerte. Joaquin shares a story about a night at a radio station where he had a special guest.
Let's all welcome Joaquin Muerte.
So I come from a small town by the name of Del Rio, specifically in the barrio named San Felipe. I was raised up in a very spiritual family. We are Azteca Mexica Danzante Concheros. So the danza conchero is a synchronized danza that comes from way back in the day. I'm talking about pre-colonial times, right? I was raised up in a house where there was always copal and sage, and there was always a little dark shadow that we just allowed to be in the space. It was possibly my grandmother. I had a small epiphany happen to me when I was about 9 years old and experienced something that gave me some abilities and brought me sleep paralysis. I got visitations on a regular basis from owls and some stuff like that. Even the possibility of touch heal when I was younger. You can hear about that on my podcast. It's called the Chicanx versus Aliens podcast. If you guys have Spotify, I talk about it and tell that full story. The one thing that I loved about being a conchero was that I grew up as a kid going to ceremonies, native ceremonies all the time. And when I was hanging out at the ceremonies as a kid, I would hang out with all the other sons and daughters of the danzantes and the leadership that were there. One of the things that they introduced me to was hip hop. And I'm talking about underground hip hop, Artifacts, Souls of Mischief, Wu-Tang Clan. I'm talking about 1992, 1993 when it was just popping off. And so I right away started to freestyle. I learned how to break dance. I learned how to pop lock. I was like really into like collecting the tapes and reading the liner notes and finding out more about more hip hop. So I got better and better at freestyle rapping. And I was like really good. Don't ask me to do it right now. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not that good no more. But I got really good at it. And so growing up in the ceremony, some of those kids that I grew up with and myself would rap a lot. And I started writing a lot and making my own music, right? I started to skateboard, and this one skateboard company in my hometown asked me to write a rap commercial. And they said, come record a rap commercial and we'll pay you for this in clothes. And so I was like, yeah, all right, I could do it. So they said, go to the radio station and go and, tell them what you want, show them what you wrote, show them what you're going to do, and then tell them exactly how you want to do it. I said, okay, cool. So I go to the radio station. The guy was like, I love your voice. You have a great voice. Why don't you come work for us? And I was like, hell yeah. I was in high school. I was going to be a radio DJ. And so he said, well, great. Come here, next week, whatever. You start Monday. It was kind of like that. Like I just started working right away. And so then the shift that they gave me was from midnight to 6 a.m. So I was working with all the HEB stalkers and all the folks that were working overnight. And, in Del Rio, it's a border town, so the maquilas have overnight staff too. So I was playing music, and people were calling me all the time. When I first got the job, somebody said, so the rules are, do no radio silence whatsoever. If there is radio silence, we got to call somebody and make sure that we don't get in trouble for, through the FCC. We can get fines, we can get penalties, all that. And so I was like, okay. And then they said, also, we think the place is haunted. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit about that. So the guy was telling me how, you're in the booth right here, and there's a window, and that one of the main co-owners or stakeholders had seen something that really, really scared him. And I was like, well, I grew up with shadows and stuff, no big deal. I grew up with limpias and stuff. I could figure it out, no big deal. And so, anyway, the guy before my shift was a guy by the name of Michael Love. Michael Love was one of those radio station dudes, and he'd be like, "This is the Love Hour with Michael Love," and I was like, whatever. I kind of was with my little backpack and my little hip hop tapes and stuff, ready to be all like, whatever, man. And I would get there, and he'd be all like, "Hey, come on in, bro. Whatever. You want some Coke?" And I'd be like, and he'd be there. With the rule was no people were allowed to be in the booth. He always had one girl on each side, and they were always really skimpy. And so I would kind of just be there, just kind of as soon as you're done, bro, you can split, I'm just kind of get out of here. So one night he was taking his time. It was one of those guys that at the hour that he was at, the party was happening in my small town. It was always people were cruising, they were parking, they were listening to the radio, it was popping. So he was like a celebrity. So one day I'm there with him, and, he's kind of all right, man, I'm about to sign out. One more song, and then I'm going to sign out. I was like, all right, cool. So then, we're all hanging out. I'm just kind of chilling in the booth, just kind of annoyed. And then the whole radio station just powers down. Oh, crap. So we have to, report this. We got to say something. So right away, I'm, looking for the paperwork, and he's all like, everybody calm down. I'll be all right. And in the hallway, there was a small light that also was, lighting the hallway. It was kind of a dark radio station. The light just flickers on. The whole station was off. Radio was silent. The whole place was, you can tell when the radio was off, you could feel the electricity all off, except for this one flickering light in the hallway. So we all looked back to see the light and walk past the hallway in that booth, walks past this shadow. And the shadow had this tall brim, long brim. It was 7 feet tall, and it just and everybody's freaks out, man. There's nothing I can do about it. My shift just started. So I was so they literally got up and they left. They ran out the door, and I was there with my little backpack and was just so a couple observations, right? Everything came back on. I made sure that I wrote down the thing. I called the boss, let him know that I was there. I called a couple friends. They weren't allowed to come in, so they had to hang out outside with me, and I'd go outside and just be at the door. At the time, I was smoking cigarettes, and we'd be with the door open with a cigarette. And but there was a couple questions that I had now. What was that? What was happening in that radio station that type of ghost came? The other thing was that in my growing up with the sleep paralysis, I had seen that type of entity in my dreams before. Was that a sleep entity coming out? Was that something that was manifesting itself in what I was experiencing? Was that a ghost of that area? The area had a history of a Native American either battleground or burial ground or something. That's Del Rio. Del Rio was a Comanche, land of the Comanches. And so that remained the question. Another piece that we were observed was that that the ghost was taller, and they believed that when you are floating in another dimension, you float at least a couple feet above. Anyway, the mystery remains.
Michael Love.
I don't know. I think maybe it might have been Beyonce's hat, that white.
I just don't like dudes with hats. I don't know. I was like,
they're kind of
especially floating dudes with hats. I don't.
7 foot ones. That's also bad.
Ew.
Yeah, no
gross.
thanks.
Yeah. Did
I love
anybody
that
get
story.
sage, by the way? Did you guys buy sage? Okay, cool. Well, we'll know who'll be safe tonight. Papa Jim's shop. Ugh, all right. We only have one more. Are you guys sad or what?
Woo. Oh,
All right,
it's a good
settle
one.
down. That's enough. Okay. It's a good one. Yeah. We our final storyteller of the night is Justin Governale. Justin's going to share a story about an unexpected night on the town with a dude he just met.
Please welcome our final storyteller of the night, Justin Governale.
I wonder which one I stand in front of. Dude. That's funny. Anyway, so I know it's hard to believe. A couple years ago, I matched with a supermodel on Tinder. Yeah, pretty cool, right? And I put my height on there and everything, right? So she starts asking me, we match on this date, and she wants to go see Marlon Wayne. He's a comic, right? And so I buy these 2 tickets. They're $50 a ticket. She even asked me, what are you going to wear? And I pick out an outfit. And, you know, whatever, we match. And then she tells me, tell me when you're there. I'm in the parking lot. I want to walk up at the same time. We're walking up. Right when I get there, she's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm right here. You know, and she's a beautiful supermodel. None of my friends believe me. I'm like, look at this girl. And then sure enough, right, she's like, oh, sorry, I got cold feet. Blocks me, just boom. Right? Aw, so sad, right? Anyway. So I I'm gonna go into this comedy show now by myself. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna let this go to waste. So as I'm walking in, I have my tickets and they're scalpers because it's sold out, right? So I'm like, whatever. I'm walking in, hey, I don't want this to go to waste. Does anybody want it? And this random dude is like, oh, me, please. And it's 2 guys and 2 girls. They're 2 couples. So he's like, I'll buy it from you. I say, dude, don't worry about it, man. Like, I don't want to lose my money. Here. I give it to him and he says, cool, dude. Can I just buy you a beer after the show? I'm like, yeah, of course, man. So whatever. I go in, I watch the show. Show's great. It's hilarious, right? We're done. And, when I'm leaving, I see my buddy. And he's like, hey, bro, we're going to go to this bar around the corner. Let me buy you that beer, man. I'm like, yeah, for sure. So we go in. And then I notice that it's 2 guys and 2 girls. They're couples. And I start noticing they're not together. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he starts, oh, her, don't worry about her, dude. Dude, do you want to hook up with her? And I'm like, buddy, I'm a Marine. I'll fuck anything, right? That was a long time ago. I'm a changed man now, you know. But, yeah, dude, thank me for my service, dude. Anyway, so yeah, man. So he's, I start talking to this girl, and then he's like, as a matter of fact, what do you think about this girl? And he starts showing me all these girls that he's friends with, right? And he's like, which one do you want to hook up with him? I'm like, all of them, right? Like, and so he says, you know what, dude? And he's real cool. He's real bro. He's like, get my number. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And he goes, send me a text so I have your number. I'm like, yeah, cool. And so for whatever reason, with I just got out of the military, like my Marine humor, he's like, send me a text. So I sent him a bunch of squirt emojis and an eggplant, right? Yeah. And so he looks at it, and he looks at me, and he smiles, and he sends back eggplant, squirting emoji, and heart eyes, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. This guy's cool. He's a bro, And so time passes, right? And, this couple says, we're going to step outside. And they go outside, and they start arguing and stuff, right? And, and then this girl gets a phone call that he's with, and she says, I'll be right back. They're arguing. She runs outside. It's me and, homeboy. He's a cool guy. He's going to let me bang his friend, so he's really cool, right? And then he gets a call, and he's like, hey, let's go outside, man. Like, things are crazy out there or whatever. And we go outside, and I start realizing that there's cops now involved, and they have the one couple and the other girl sitting down. I guess they got violent, right? And so the guy's like, I want nothing to do with this. And then they turn, and they look at me and him, and they point at us, right? And then the cops look at us and start walking. So the guy, I've never met this guy. He's like, dude, just start walking. And for some reason, I just start walking with him, right? Yeah. And, thank me for my service, dude. Anyway, so I'm walking with this guy, and out of nowhere, he was really cool the whole time. He's like, yeah, bro, real macho, right? Like, and he ends up saying, dude, I know I just met you, man. But do you mind if I just crash your place, bro? And it's like, I lived in California at the time. It's like beach towns and stuff. So I was like, yeah, for sure, brother, like. And so I bring this dude home. Everything's cool. Again, he's super cool, super respectful. And right as we're getting to my apartment, right, I pull into like the driveway to my spot. And I pull in, and right when I'm pulling in, he says, hey man, why'd you go to that comedy show alone? And I'm like, yeah, I got catfished by some supermodel, man. She wasn't real. And he's like, yeah, dude, you shouldn't have gone alone. You're attractive. And I'm like, thanks, man. And then he says, no, you're like really attractive. I turn my car off and I'm like, all right, right on. Thanks for the compliment, brother, Hombre, And so I start walking up to my apartment, and like right as I put my key in, I like jiggle my key and I look at him. I'm like, I don't normally do this, right? But no, I'm just kidding. It's a joke, relax, right? So I walk in, and it's California. We have roommates. We got a guy like renting out the living room. So it's California, right? And so, my roommate's in the living room on his huge mattress, right? Just smoking weed. He's hitting a bong. And I walk in with this random dude I just met, and I go to my room because my charger's gonna die. Like, my phone's gonna die, so I need my charger. So I walk into my room, and this man just throws himself on my bed, just boom, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I get my charger, and I go back out to the living room, and my roommate's just hitting this bong. And I start getting these text messages. It's from an unsaved number. Last text messages are squirt emojis and eggplants, right? And he's like, Justin, are you coming? And I'm like, psst, psst. And it's like, Justin, and my roommate hitting the bong. Justin, come lay down. Justin, are you coming? Justin. And it says, come cuddle. And I'm like, oh my God. And my roommate's just, right. So I turn my phone and I show it to my roommate, and we're single dudes, always bringing like different girls home at the time, right? And so like I show him the phone, and he's like, and then as he's inhaling the smoke, he's like, who's that? And I'm just like looking at my room, and I'm just pointing to my room, and he blows out all the smoke. He goes, and he goes, I'm way too high for this shit, right? So I remember I have a pistol in my room, right? And so I'm like, oh shit, there's this random strange man in my room that I brought home, right? For whatever reason. Thank me for my service, dude. What the fuck? And so I go in and I grab my pistol, right? And then I go and I lay down on the couch. And as I'm laying down on the couch, like I went to the Iraq War, right? So I'm like laying down with my pistol, and he's got a pistol too, technically in my room, right? But like, so I'm laying down, right? And I keep hearing noises, right? And every time I would hear a noise, it was just my cat Harambe, right? And I was like, I would wake up like, damn it, Harambe, don't you know you have a 1,000% higher chance of getting shot for just having the name Harambe right now, right? Like 2016, right? And so, I keep waking up and I'm like panicking, right? And so, in the morning I wake up and for whatever reason, I walk up to him and I'm like, hey bro, you gotta go. I gotta go teach a jiu-jitsu class. And for whatever reason, I gave him a green apple and a glass of water, right? And he wakes up, bro, what happened last night, brother and man? And I was like, yeah, you gotta go, dude. So whatever, he leaves. He starts sending me some text messages like, sorry, I don't know what happened. I tell him like, it's all good, not my thing, man. He's like, LOL, you should have came and cuddled, right? So I go and I teach a jiu-jitsu class in the morning, and there's a guy named Mike Ness. I don't know if you know of him. He's like the king of punk rock, right? He trained in my gym, and they're waiting for me to unlock the door. So I start telling him the story. What happened last night? I'm like, bro, this and that. This guy, he's in my room. And I get to the point where, and Mike Ness is all covered in tattoos up to the neck. So I get up to the point where I'm like, dude, and then I told him he had to go, and then they're like, and then what happened next? I'm like, dude, I gave him a glass of water and a green apple. And then Mike Ness looks at me with tattoos on his neck, and he goes, you gave him breakfast, you fucking cock tease? And then I blocked him and I ghosted him, and that's pretty creepy. Anyway, I'm Justin Governale. Thank you so much.